On September 4th in Kyiv, unknown vandals set fire to the studio offices of National Information Systems, the company that produces programs for the Inter TV channel in Ukraine. Part of the offices on one floor went up in flames, but fortunately there were no fatalities. Inter TV has been criticized by many for allegedly having a pro-Kremlin agenda in its programming. Some believe and go so far as to say that it is nothing more than a propaganda arm for the Kremlin. Earlier in the day, dozens of unknown individuals in camouflage gear had set fire to tires outside of the same building. Inter TV executives have claimed that the fire at its studio was the result of arson. In a series of letters to foreign embassies, Inter TV described this incident as an attack on journalism and free speech in Ukraine, which, taking all facts into account, is quite ironic. A criminal probe was launched, and President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, assigned Prosecutor General Yuri Lutsenko to personally head up the investigation into the fire at Inter TV. Poroshenko categorically stated that he is certain that this fire was not the handiwork of Ukrainian patriots, insofar as such vandalism only brings dishonor and harm to the Ukrainian state. At the same time, he underscored the fact that it is unacceptable that certain TV channels supported by funding from the Russian Federation have, quote, attempted to destabilize the situation in Ukraine, end quote. He concluded by stating that any investigation of this matter must be done by the book. Fire marshals and police commenced their investigations. On September 5th, Zoryan Shkiryak from the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine disclosed that Inter TV had refused to hand over security camera footage from the night of the fire to national police investigators. On September 7th, however, Inter TV published the security camera footage, which shows a group of unknown individuals in white hard hats and face masks forcing their way into the building. However, the footage cuts off just before the fire actually starts and resumes once the fire is already underway. Zoryan Shkiryak announced that investigators are working on identifying those who were behind the fire, and that he is certain that, quote, the true facts of the incident will be established, end quote. In the opinion of protesters, in fact, many Ukrainians overall, Inter TV regularly takes a pro-Kremlin position in its programming. Past scandals involving Inter TV include a particularly divisive conflict in February 2016, following which the executive editor of a very popular news show on Inter TV, Russian citizen Maria Stolarova, was deported from Ukraine after she had used vulgarities on air to describe the Heavenly Hundred, and was subsequently investigated by the Security Service of Ukraine for this and other activities. At present, similar accusations of an anti-Ukrainian stance are being leveled at Russian lawyer and politician Igor Shovalov, the senior news editor at Inter TV. On September 5th, a demonstration was staged in front of the head office of Inter TV, on a different Kyiv street than the fire that had occurred at Inter TV's studio offices. An entry to the building was blocked by nearly 100 protesters. They were demanding the dismissal of Igor Shovalov and a change in Inter TV's overall information policies. Veterans of the anti-terrorist operation, or ATO, brought in tires to block entry to the building and set up tents, thus settling in for the long haul in their protest. The National Police, the National Guard, and firefighters were called in and remained on high alert for the duration of the protest, which broke up on September 6th after protesters left Inter TV with an ultimatum that they will return in 5 days if their demands are not met. It should be noted that the protesters insisted that they had nothing to do with the earlier fire at Inter TV's studio offices, that the earlier fire was a deliberate attempt to turn attention away from Inter TV's activities, while simultaneously implicating Ukrainian patriots in some sort of wrongdoing. After all, in the words of analysts, following the fire, Inter TV's viewership increased significantly. The beginning of September in Dnipro saw the presentation of a very important book titled Book of Remembrance, Kniha Pamyati, which is dedicated to the Ukrainian army soldiers who died in the Donbas region while defending the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. The book is a collection of 800 stories of soldiers from various regions of Ukraine who died defending their country from 2014 to the spring of 2016. The greatest number of stories, 346 losses, concerned soldiers from the Dnipropetrovsk district. All of the soldiers' stories were painstakingly collected by the National Military History Museum, and the book's publication was financed by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. This edition of the book has been given out primarily to the families of the fallen soldiers. An expanded edition with more stories and a wider distribution plan is currently in the works. In the words of one mother of a fallen soldier, "A nation is alive so long as it remembers its heroes." In tandem with the book presentation was an exhibit titled Checkpoint of Memory, Blokpost Pamięci. This exhibit consisted of a moving artistic display of the photos and personal effects of fallen soldiers. As an informative, relevant side note, although the city of Dnipropetrovsk was recently renamed Dnipro, the district itself will retain its name Dnipropetrovsk until such time as relevant changes to the Ukrainian constitution have been adopted. I'm Tania Stech, and this is Ukraine in the News.